the last time I saw you, you were gussied up, you were walking red carpets, and then you were receiving a very prestigious award in one of the most beautiful and friendly places in the world, Halifax, just a few weeks ago as we speak. Big congratulations. People are wondering, what is he talking about? What was the honor, my friend?
I won the Juno for 2024 for MusiCounts Teacher of the Year in
How
my
did,
my home
sorry to
province.
interrupt you. How did that feel?
It was incredible. It's especially when you back home. I lived in Halifax for probably over a decade. I went to university for my undergrad there. Um, yeah, and I had some family in the audience. Some friends drove up to be in the audience. Um, yeah, it was incredible. And after about 3 days, my feet. I always lived downtown. Our hotel that we were in was beside a couple of my old apartments. So a few days, I brought David down from my band, and he works at the high school here. And he said, "Where are we going?" I was cutting through alleys. I said, "Oh, my feet remember."
I was going to say, nobody told me about the hills.
Yeah,
And oh man, it was like, it was shock because they're
yeah,
not just hills, they're hills.
yeah. Especially around the Metro Center, Scotia Bank or Scotia Center now. But yeah, that was a pretty high hill to go up.
Yeah, but you reached the highest of all hills, man. You and I actually had a conversation at the press conference, but I only had a chance to ask you a question about, the state of, schools losing their uh, fundings for music courses. We're going to get into that in a second, but I got to ask, man, right off, how did you get the nomination, and what did your school? What was the kids' reactions when they heard about your nomination, and then what was the reaction? Were they watching or anything when they found out that you won?
So the nomination would be first. I applied for a grant a few times to MusiCounts to get some of my instruments fixed. We're about an 18-hour, 16, 18-hour drive, depending on how fast you want to drive to Edmonton. So I can fix most of the instrument stuff, but you can't really buy the parts at Canadian Tire or anything. So eventually you got to send them down to Edmonton. So it's been a few years and some of them are in pretty rough shape. So I applied to MusiCounts and got a grant. And then Nick Godso, he had called me, who works for MusiCounts, and said, "Now we can put your name in for a Juno." And at the time, I didn't even know that was. I had put my own band in for a Juno one time, see if I could get nominated with Agony of the Leaves. I just thought it was for bands, but he said, "Yeah, now you can apply, have your administration put in and fill out these forms and stuff." And so that's how that started. And yeah, when the kids found out, I know some of them were watching. The time difference would make it some of my own two children were watching. When I saw the picture, my wife posted. She's a teacher at our board too. They look pretty they look pretty tired in the picture. But when I came back, the art teacher, Deanna Zaruka, who I work with quite a bit in concerts and setting up stages and stuff, she had her class just outside my room here. They put a red carpet in the hall. They painted a Juno statue. And when I came in that morning, because we got back a day late just due to flight delays, and I came in and the secretary was here with the camera, and I said something's going on. And when I opened the door, there's the big red carpet and the Juno and everything, and kids were waiting for me inside. And then they had a cake that they had taken the picture that Music Counts had of me with my guitar and had it printed onto a cake. So that was so all the staff got to have cake and coffee. It was pretty cool. Really,
Now,
really great.
I'm curious, did they give you the Juno, or do you have to wait for it to be ordered and sent to you?
The one that you have in the pictures and stuff is just like a standard one, but
Right, right.
the real one showed up on Friday, and
Oh,
my son,
cool.
yeah, and it's super heavy. Like it was, I said, I'm
Yeah.
glad I've been lifting weights because it's way heavier than I than I anticipated. So my son, he has well, my oldest son's in grade 5. He has like a YouTube channel, Reyes Tube, where he unboxes dinosaurs and Pokemon cards and stuff. So I said, if you want to unbox this, and he got ready. I said, I just need a 40-minute reel, and then he was in his room doing it, setting it all up, and he did like 9 minutes. So I got to edit that down. I get him to make all his own music for his channel too. So I said, if you're going to make a channel, you got to write all your own music. So now he's putting music behind it and stuff. But he was really into that.
I'm so happy for you, man. Look, what
Thank you.
made you decide to become a music teacher? It sounded like you wanted to be not wanted to be, that you're a musician first, but then suddenly this love came in also. What was the transition like and why?
Well, I started really late. My mother always sang. She's great. She was a great singer. My father's sang. He's a reverend in the church, so I kind of grew up around that. And Nova Scotia has so much Celtic music,
Yeah.
and really it took me a long time to appreciate that music because it was everywhere. Like I could go out. I'm from a really small town of Grand River, about population 70, about 90% gray hair growing in that population, like really old people. But I could go out sometimes in the summer and there would be a person on their deck playing bagpipes. And it would travel across it's almost like an 80s movie. It's like really, when I look back, it's pretty hilarious. Or people playing fiddle on their deck and stuff like that. But I was really into jam bands, Jimmy Swift Band in Halifax, Fish, Pink Floyd, um, and loved jazz. My mother loved jazz, and I went to St. FX eventually for jazz. But I picked the guitar up at 21, and I just had a really close friend say, like, what? I was passing lyrics out at barbecues and parties and trying to get guitar players to write music. And she said, why don't you just try it yourself? I said, you can't. I said, 21's way too old to start an instrument. And now the brain research has proven that completely wrong. And she was right. And I got obsessed and started playing quite a bit, applied to X, got into X for jazz, and that's just like being dropped on Mars and trying to learn a new language. Like jazz is so intense, and
Yeah.
but I loved it. So I was lucky. I'd worked a lot of jobs. I'd worked for CIBC in Halifax, and I taught overseas in Korea. So I approached the Saint of X program. I went there at 27, just like a job. I'd get up, I'd work till recess, imaginary recess. Then I worked till lunch. I've treated it like it was a teaching day, and just put in the hours, but on the guitar. And then I decided to combine my two teachables. I went to St. Mary's for English LA and creative writing, and then with guitar, I could have two high school teachables. So I trained for high school band with Brent Bannerman and Annie Ganesh. She's a longtime band teacher in Nova Scotia. Um, and then I did my practicum in Annie Ganesh for English and grade 12 English, and then grade 12 band with Mr. Bannerman. And I love silent reading and journals, but it was so attractive. Like you could be going to class every day and playing music class after class after class. And then so I started applying for jobs. And I started applying for more. I applied for some high school English jobs, but I started applying for more music jobs. And I moved to Vancouver and I was working like in private schools. And then I just started applying all over the north. And this job came up here at St. Joe's. And I was itinerant between the three schools in our district. And just you come in every day and you're playing music and you're getting to play instruments that you might not have bought yourself. Parents give me banjos and different. They go on trips during March break and they come back with instruments from different hot places, and just so it's just all day you're just playing music, and that keeps you sharp. And the kids they're excited to go to music. So just yeah, it just kind of fell into place, but in a really weird, strange path. I guess most people start pretty early and they've gone through band themselves. I only had a music teacher, I think, for as much of grade 5, and she passed away suddenly. They never reinstated our program. She failed me for not. It's the only F I've ever got. She failed me for not being able to tune the guitar. Um, but I was because you're in such a small town. Like when people go in and they stop playing street hockey or fishing, you're going back home. You're by yourself. I just got super into albums, and they became like more my teacher. Like just really like with headphones, and I had a huge stereo in our living room, so I was just always really listening to music. And then the only way I could see in was writing album reviews. So I started working for a bunch of papers, the Coast in Halifax, a couple of papers that they're no longer, but it was a way to get free CDs every week. I get about 10 CDs a week. I get to go see bands. The last time I was inside underneath the stands of the Metro Center. That's where they took me when I won. I was interviewing Rain from Our Lady Peace. So it's
Nice.
cool. I was like, this is like full circle. I was down here probably 20 some years ago interviewing him. And I still talk to him sometimes on Facebook. But now I'm like, this is like crazy now. Now I'm here. It's
Yeah, now
pretty
you
amazing.
both share something. You're Juno Award winners. So there you
Yeah.
go. You
Yeah,
gotta love
basically.
that. Um, I know we don't have a lot of time, but I think this part is really important. What does music do for these kids? Um, these programs? Because I know for myself, like I said, I started when I was in grade two. I finished up when I was in high school in grade 12. I always had band, trumpet, trombone, baritone. And I did like I played football, I did all these other things. Some people might think music, being in a band is nerdy. I did it because I loved it. I know what it did for me. What do you see it does for the kids?
I see like for a lot of them, it gives them because when we didn't have music in my high school, there was sports. So I was heavy into hockey, loved hockey, and it's every many Canadian kids' dreams to be in the NHL. And as you go along, you realize that's a lot of work too, and a lot of luck, and a lot of fortune, and a lot of money. Um, but for some kids, like being able to come down here at recess, I'm always down here with music blaring. It gives them like if they find the playground tough, there's like awkward social situations or bullying going on with them. They can come down here and just kind of plug away, and then have not an immediate validation from the instrument, but they can slowly start to see that, man, I could get good at this. And you don't have to be like, just like, look, like you can look any way you want. And if you're really into music and get good at, like, that will become the new look, just the way you look. Like you can really write your own ticket and become, especially now with Instagram and TikTok and all this stuff, they
Yeah.
can really change their life in any way they want if they're super organized and love the instrument. And then it gives them like social connections. Like when the first night in Halifax, I went to get a donaire. I've had one since I go home every summer, but I'm not downtown a lot. And I could hear a band in the I was in the economy shoe shop and I could hear a band through the wall. And I said, I think that's my friend playing because I know he played in that area. And I texted him on Facebook and he was there and I went over. I haven't seen him in like 15 years. So we watched three sets. Then my other friend was two bars down. And it's just like they walked out of the room and they came back in, but you realize it's like 20 years. So those connections like are really, really solid because music is such a intimate kind of, you have to really have a lot of conversations if you're writing songs. And it I played on sports teams. It can be like that, especially if you're winning, but it really is like that. Just if you're in a band for even a few months with a person, you can see them down the road and it's just like you never left. So that helps them a lot. And because we're up here, it's a really dark, long, cold winter. And
Yeah.
so when I moved up from Vancouver, I didn't know if there'd be much of a music scene. And when I first moved up, it was a really vibrant music scene. It's coming back now after COVID. But I think it's a lot like Winnipeg, like same type of thing. When I've recorded a little bit in Winnipeg, and so the winter just kind of people need something to do, and it's very productive and keeps you out of trouble and stuff. So that really helps kids as well.
Last question as we start to wrap this up. If you could send a message to the government, and this is about what we talked about in the press room on the cutbacks that have been going on in schools, which I think is a horrible thing. And the fact that you have to ask for grants to get instruments changed, because I know the instruments I used were brand new, so I never had to worry about it. But I'm older than you, so back then there was never even a thought about that. What would you like to say to the government about when it comes to the music programs across Canada for schools?
Well, I don't talk to Trudeau a lot, but if I was if I was talking to them, it's really frustrating. Like when a kid is doing everything right, and I watch it every day. Like they're doing everything right. They're doing the fingerings on the trumpet right. They're holding it right. They're sitting right. They're breathing right, and they're completely fighting the instrument. And then so I'll have to take that instrument out of play and put it in the fix it pile. And depending on how many we have in working order, I might have to switch them to a different instrument. They might have to wait a couple of days. So that part is frustrating, especially for me. Like I remember playing as you start to play more and more gigs. Like when I first moved up, I was playing about 100 gigs a year outside of teaching in my band, and you start to get money from the gigs, so you start to buy better instruments. So I got my guitar. That's my stage guitar. It's in pieces from Halifax. I put it in my carry on, but I have to put it back together. But it looks beat up. It's been through thousands of gigs, but it's an expensive guitar. And once you play a really good working instrument, then you can really just flow and just be thinking about the song and that. But I've played instruments where the strings like are 20 feet off the neck. It's really frustrating. Like, so if, it's really important for kids. During COVID, I saw kids that were quiet and we kind of got our way around the singing aspect. We did raps, COVID raps, Because I said, we're talking now. We got our masks on, so they can't say anything. We're allowed to talk. And kids just, I said, we're going to write raps about how you feel about COVID because they were looking to adults for guidance. And I don't think a lot of adults knew what was going on either. So, like I said, let's just like sit and write stuff down. And kids were writing pages, like 4 or 5 pages of their feelings into a rap. So it's a really great way to process your emotions, especially they're learning how to regulate and deal with their emotions, and that can travel into their adulthood. Really great way to celebrate events in their life. And for me, like I can put on, even when I was in Halifax, I was putting on like Jane's Addiction, Porno for Pyros, and different bands I listened to then, and Jeff Buckley. And immediately I was just like, man, this is just like being back in university, except my favorite spot, Second Cup, is now Lululemon. It's a little different, but it just brings you back. So they can have like friends might come and go, but like like Chris Cornell is one of my favorite singers, favorite bands. Like he's passed away, and but I see he's behind me here. I can go back and listen to him, and it's just like he's still there. Like he's left a legacy for a long time. So for if kids can have instruments that are working, and if every school had a mandated music program, that's like enriching. There's other countries I've read about that's like that's their whole thing in their country. Like they wouldn't even think of taking music out of the schools. So it's like it's one of the things that I just don't think should be cut. There's other kind of things they bring in that are trends and different things, but music and being able to read, write, and do math, that's your skeleton of a school system, and they really shouldn't pull it away. It really enriches the society, and a lot of these kids need it. There's lots of mental health challenges now. Everybody went through COVID. They need something to like some solid base that they can lock onto and keep for their whole entire life.
Is one of the oldest forms of communication, my friend, and you are representing that with this Juno and what you do with the school. Congratulations on this win. Thank you for what you're doing for the kids, for society, and representing the way you do across Canada. You deserve this, my friend. You deserve it. Congratulations.